Today's episode of the Overcoming Graduation podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/OCG. That's audibletrial.com/OCG. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Overcoming Graduation with Brian Drury, a show where I work to teach you everything I wished I'd known about life to help you graduate to the next level in your own. Today my guest is Will Rossi, aka the King of the Outcasts, and today we're going to dive into one of the most important interviews I think we've ever had on the show. In this interview, Will is going to take us on an absolutely stunning and breathtaking adventure of life that started in his early childhood when his parents decided to pull him and his sister out of school and take them around the world on adventures in all different countries with all different cultures. And he shares one of the most powerful stories about not just the impact you can have on someone's life with a small contribution, but how often people will use money as an excuse for or not having enough of it to make an impact in people's lives, and oftentimes it takes significantly less. Really, some of the greatest things we can give are our time and our energy. Money is just another form of energy that we're giving. So that story is coming up in this interview, and guys, it blew my mind when I heard it. I have shared it dozens, if not more, of times since then, and I cannot wait for you to listen and hear that one today. Then later in Will's life, he's going to go into discussing his battles with depression and suicidal thoughts. Now, Will is one of the most heart-centered people I've ever met. When I met him, he had this empathy and understanding about him that for a man in his in his early 20s is absolutely phenomenal. That's something some people never develop, but his level of emotional intelligence and awareness is incredible. What he discusses in this interview is that came largely through his pain and his suffering, that he has become thankful for the pain that he's gone through because it has enabled him to become who he is today. And the way he discusses and describes how he went through this journey and how he's pulled himself out of depression and now how he uses that as a Twitch.tv game streamer and charity game streamer is unbelievable. He uses his pain to help others who feel lost or disconnected, and that's why he calls himself the King of the Outcasts. So in today's episode, Will share the difference between a positive distraction and escapism, which is a very important distinction to understand. He's also going to share about the concept of a 5-second focus, what it is and how it can drastically change your life starting right now. 0 days, and how to make sure you never have one again. Why millennials are the multi-tool generation and how we are reshaping the way the world works, and as always, so much more. Like I said, Will is a truly special person. When I met him at a live event and I was going through some heavy things and did some deep work to break through some things about realizing some of the things that I had been hiding from about dealing with the loss of my mom to pancreatic cancer, I remember Will gave me a big hug, held me for a few seconds as I'm crying, and said, "You loved her so much." And I'll never forget that. Those words in that moment, "You loved her so much," that he acknowledged and recognized that, but was also there to support me in a moment where I felt weak and lost. Will, when you listen to this, brother, I will never forget that. I love you for it. And that is just one small example of the type of person Will is. So I am so excited to introduce you all to Will Rossi. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another interview on Overcoming Graduation. Today, I am super thrilled to have my guest, Will Rossi. Hey, man, how you doing?
Hello. I'm
Hey.
pretty good.
Pretty good? Just pretty good? Well, we're going to make that great.
What can I say?
So, Will, I was fortunate enough to meet very recently at a conference and instantly connected with him, hit off. And it's funny because we're in two totally different worlds in terms of what we're doing today, but also have so many commonalities in the types of messages we're working to share and who we're working to impact. Now, for any frequent listeners of the show, you guys know that typically we'll kick this off from high school or college graduation, But when I heard this first piece of Will's story, I went, holy shit, we got to start there. So Will, if you can take us back to when I believe you said it was around 10 years old,
Yep.
what was the big thing going on in your life and the big change that occurred?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll take us back a little further. It was around 8 is when this first got proposed to us. So my sister and I actually kind of remember it. We were sitting around the dinner table, and we could tell my dad wanted to tell us something, but you know, we couldn't really fully pick up on that. And all of a sudden he pitched the idea, what if we pulled you guys out of school for a year and just kind of traveled around the world, you know, saw different places, a lot of different cultures, the good and the bad, and just kind of did that for a year. And, you know, me and my sister, being 8 and 9-year-olds, immediately were horrified by the idea. Away from our dogs, our friends, everything we know. It was scary, so we hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my parents did what any good parent would do in this situation and didn't listen to us and did it anyway. And I had to say that was one of the most impactful years of my life. I was telling you before we started, I always say I went on the trip a spoiled brat, and I came back who I am today.
Mm-hmm. And what I think is fantastic is, for me, travel started when I was 18, 19 years old. It was my first real international travel. And I heard stories about it from my parents ever since I was a little kid, because my parents met in France. My mom lived all over the world because her dad worked with the World Bank. She was born in Sri Lanka. She went to high school in Kenya. And I was like, I need to have these stories, but I didn't quite know why. And so your parents, like you said, being good parents and not listening to you guys, knew better and saw something greater for you. So you guys spent a year traveling, which is still a dream of mine, to just
almost a year. We did
almost a year.
2 months out, 1 month back, just so that we could still come back and see our dogs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we were gone for 2 months at a time. You know, we would typically tackle one continent or part of a continent in that amount of time. So like our Africa trip was 2 months.
Mm-hmm. And how many different countries did you visit total during this trip?
Oh my God. A lot. I can tell you we hit every continent. We went to every continent, including Antarctica, which is still one of my favorite places on the earth. It's just so calm there. And there, I can understand how it'd be like a panicky moment for a lot of people, because you're so secluded. But for me, that feeling of just being alone, away from everything and every worry, because we didn't even, you know, like cell phones still aren't down there for the most part. Mm-hmm. And so you had no internet, you had no cell phone, and you just kind of had to enjoy. There was nothing else.
Yeah, you actually have a forced disconnection that isn't just like, hey, we drove up in the mountains, but we're 30 minutes away from Wi-Fi. It's like we are totally away from it. Now, I'd love for you to share, because when you said we went to Antarctica, I was like, oh, penguins, what was it like? And you shared a kind of funny thing that I didn't expect. Could you share with the audience what that was about Antarctica?
So when you go see penguins in the zoo, something you'll probably notice when you get close to them is their smell. In the zoo, it's not that bad. Their crap smells really bad. It smells really bad just because, you know, they eat fish. That's all they eat. And so when you go to Antarctica, there's no zookeepers and it's ice, so it can't decompose. So it's just a layer of crap on top of layer of crap. And I will tell you what, you can smell those penguins from miles away.
I remember being like, because you did the same type of story. You were like, it was the most beautiful and peaceful. And I just felt so free in the moment. And then we're like in the penguins, and it's like, and if you get near the penguins, it smells like shit. So it's like so many places you go, there's beauty and there's shit everywhere you go, quite literally there.
One incredibly beautiful thing about Antarctica. And it's one of those surreal things because it almost removes you from reality. There's a beach where it's a immediate drop off. As soon as the sand hits the water, you go in about a foot and then it goes down for about, I think they said it was like at least 200 yards.
Wow.
Like it is a huge drop. And because it's such a huge drop, they can bring the cruise ship, so it's basically rubbing noses with the beach.
Wow.
And the second coolest part about the place is that it is directly next to a volcano. So there is just like water that's been heated by the volcano pumping up through the sand. So if you dig a hole, well, one, we took off our shoes and walked around barefoot on a beach in Antarctica, which was pretty cool. But then if you dig out a hole in the ground, it'll fill up with water and become a hot tub.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That sounds so convenient. I mean, like right now, I'm like, oh, my back's a little sore. I got some muscle tension. Just go dig a hole.
If you've ever been in a hot tub in the winter, it's sort of like that on steroids. It's like your upper body is freezing and the rest of you is so happy.
That's fantastic, because I was lucky enough, I got to, on a layover, go to some of the natural hot springs in the Blue Lagoon in Iceland. And it was super relaxing. And it's just, it's a very different experience than when you have that natural type of heated water versus the synthetic. So,
because there's no smell of chlorine.
Right.
There's no like feeling, oh, this is kind of like recycled water. It's just, it's clean. It smells like the ocean. It's great.
That's wonderful. Now, since you visited every continent and you were 10 years old, which is an unbelievable experience, what were some of the biggest lessons you learned from travel? Because this is something that I'd say frequently on the show, is if I can get my listeners to change their mind or try one thing, it would be travel. So what were some of the biggest lessons you learned from this around the world adventure?
I'd say first and foremost, wherever you're going, don't fall into the tourist traps. Like, I know it's super easy to be like, oh, let's just go take all the tours. And honestly, if you can find one, look for a travel agency here in the US or in the country you're going to that's reliable, has a lot of good reviews, because some of them are scam artists. So you have to keep an eye out for that. Find a good travel agency and have them just tell them you want the authentic experience. You don't want the tourist traps or anything like that, because you don't truly get to appreciate a culture and a new country until you see the goods and the bads. I didn't fall in love with China until I went to their market, and we were going through the market and we started to walk in a certain direction. Our tour guide went, believe me, you do not want to see what's over there. And it just kind of opened my eyes up to like, wow, okay, there's different places in the world. Like, they eat stuff that we find disgusting, and that's a fact. And I thought it's small things like that just slowly build up and really open your eyes to the world.
Mm-hmm. And what I think is fascinating as well is, like you said, to get that real authentic experience, you have to get away from what everyone's going there to see. Now, I still recommend go see, if you're in Paris, go see the Eiffel Tower. Absolutely. Go do that. Check that box. It's like, because it is amazing. It is incredible. But what are some of my strongest memories, and I've been to 17 countries now, are the little things. And it's always about the people. It's about the noodle shop in Hong Kong, that the sign we couldn't even read, and it had like 4 tables, and we couldn't even read the menu, and we knew it was the best noodle shop on the island. And there's all these little moments. So can you tell the listener, so it sounds like Antarctica was one of your favorite spots. What were some of your other favorite locations and why?
So I've got 2 others that are on my favorites list right off the bat. First of all is going to be the Galapagos Islands. Those were, again, that sense of surreal, just the animals there hasn't been any humans there outside of scientists and tourists. Mm-hmm. So they haven't been hunted. They haven't learned to fear humans. And it's a really weird feeling to walk next to a bird and that isn't a city bird and have it not be afraid of you,
Yep.
Or like a great example is I was snorkeling, and this seal, I'm snorkeling and I see this movement like next to my head, and I look over and there's a seal just kind of like hovering in the water looking at me. And the way they play is they shoot water bubbles at each other. Like, that's a play signal. And so it shoots water bubbles right into my, or it shoots air bubbles right into my mask. And all right, okay, cool. The tour guide told me about this. I know what this is. So I take my mouthpiece out and I, shoot bubbles right back at it. And it does a little flip and gets so excited and jets off and then whips a 180 and comes back to me like it's playing tag. And you're never going to get that anywhere else because the seal is either A, pissed off at humans, or B, afraid of humans. And it's the most surreal experience to see this completely untouched land to the point where not even the animals are afraid of you. Second,
to play with a seal, I'm just picturing that. That sounds like something out of like a rom-com or like a Nicholas Sparks movie where like the seal shows up. That's just like unfucking believable, but sounds so magical. All right, so the next one.
Well, actually, I remembered a second similar story from the Galapagos. We were chilling on a beach, and because that's something you do in the Galapagos is there's a ton of beautiful beaches, and so you just you'll have a day once in a while here and there where you just have a beach day and you get off the boat and you just chill, which is what I really like. That was what I liked, is it wasn't this rush to see everything. It was more of like a relax and enjoy what's around you kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I was pretty young at the time, so my voice hadn't dropped. And there's this noise that baby seals make. I can't make it anymore, but I used to be able to imitate it perfectly when I was on the trip. And so there was this baby seal that was just kind of like waddling along the beach. It had kind of strayed away from its mom, but again, like they don't know to fear humans, so that's not a huge threat to the mom. And so it's kind of like waddling along the beach as we're all playing in the water. And I'm sitting there like where the water washes up onto the sand, and it walks near me, and I jokingly make the noise at it, and it looks at me really confused. Like this head turn, like, wait, hold on. Are you a seal? And it like comes up to me, and it like slowly reaches its head out, and then like touches its nose to my nose, and then immediately scurries away because it's like, fuck, you're not a seal. But it was the coolest experience. Oh, by the way, seals' noses are so soft.
Just for anybody who was wondering, Will has touched the softest animal nose on the planet, and it was magical. But I love that too, because there's this curiosity aspect and the untouched nature of things. And what I think is beautiful about that, and this is something where this is a lesson, that the untouched nature of curiosity can be beautiful. But when we learn and through our experience, that curiosity can lead to pain, we often will then associate with any new venture outside of our comfort zone as potential danger or death. And although we think we're so evolved as humans, you think about a seal that has dealt with humans a lot versus a seal like that, it's a totally different experience. So for all the listeners out there, keep in mind, you can have that curiosity, and it may just turn out to be a Will sitting there you're just going to bump noses and everything's cool. That every experience and every new step out of your comfort zone doesn't necessarily equate to danger, in the same way that not every human is dangerous to seals. Some are, some aren't. So when you're looking for those new experiences, you have to get past the fear of the unknown in order to get to the incredible experiences when you're getting a seal blowing bubbles in your face and giving an Eskimo kiss to a baby seal on the beach in the Galapagos. So Will, what was the second great memory? Because those two were fantastic. This would be the third then.
Yeah, well, yeah, the third. Well, you heard this story over dinner or over lunch. So we went and we visited Ghana, and for anyone who wants an authentic experience, I keep saying authentic. If you want to truly understand what it is to get by on nothing, you need to go meet the people of Ghana. You need to spend time with them. You need to interact with their culture, be involved, because they are some of the nicest people I have met who have almost nothing. We spent a week in this village in the middle of Ghana who one of the village elders had a daughter who was just a couple years older than us. I think she was 14 at the time when we were there, so about 4 or 5 years older than us. And she had a heart defect. The nurse that was at the table with us explained it. When you're a baby, you have 2 holes in your heart to allow air to go through properly. Blah 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 blah. Long story short, sometimes there's a defect where one of those holes doesn't close. And this poor girl had that, and it would require open heart surgery to fix, and the family couldn't afford it. I mean, this is a incredibly impoverished village, to the point where they knew that if they had saved for the rest of their lives, they would not have been able to afford the surgery to save their daughter. And they had hit the point where they had accepted that she was going to die. She had accepted that she was going to die. And so when we were in the village, we heard this story and we were like, oh my God, how much is the surgery? Like, in the back of our head, maybe we can pay for it. Cause open heart surgery is so expensive. And of course our insurance isn't going to cover it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just like, oh my God, maybe. And they say it's $200.
Wow.
And that was one of the mind-blowing moments for me, because $200 was so out of their reach that they couldn't even save their own daughter.
Wow. What I think is incredibly powerful about that.
And just for everyone listening, we paid for it. She's fine. We still talk to her. She's very happy. She's going to university now.
That's right. I knew the end, so I was moving on to the lesson. But yeah, so that was one of the incredible things. So we're talking over lunch, and one of the quotes that we heard at the seminar we were at was Joe Polish said, anyone who doesn't believe money can buy happiness hasn't given enough of it away. And I think if more people heard that and understood that the power in money is not from having, oh, look at all the things, and the happiness in money doesn't come from that. It comes from giving and sharing and building and growing and enhancing your life and having experiences. And the idea that $200, which, to be honest, I mean, when you think about it, a lot of people are spending that much at the bar on the weekend, let alone not even on food or anything else. And to take one weekend off, one extravagant weekend at the bar, you could save someone's life. I mean, imagine how happy that money could make somebody. So one thing that I always want to clarify, and I always think is important, is to make sure that we remember that the value that we can provide is not just monetary. In fact, monetary is one of the things that tends to have the least impact. Consider, if you feel like I have nothing to give right now, think about your time, your energy, your focus, and what you can share with people, because so many people just want to connect and they just want to know their voice is heard. And sometimes just listening can be the most valuable thing you can do. But keep in mind Will's lesson here, that by going on this trip and taking this adventure as a family, they also were able to save a young girl's life who now is a good friend. And just think about all the good things that can come. And now this person has the ability to share her gift with the world, and it grows and grows and grows. So travel by itself is incredible, but the people you meet and the relationships you make are just by far, for me, the most incredible stuff. Seeing the beautiful scenery is amazing, but it's generally those nights at a small restaurant. It's those moments where you're holding someone crying that you just met and you know that there's a person you're going to keep in touch with forever. That's what makes travel so special. So Will, you come back. You have just had a beyond transformative experience. You are no longer the brat that you left as, and you come back to the U.S. So can you tell the listeners about what that transition was like and what the next few stages of your life looked like after that?
Well, I think my life after that was a lot different than a lot of people's would be. I was homeschooled for all the way up until high school. I honestly didn't have a ton of friends, because the only friends I could get were from extracurricular activities my family could find me. So like, a local soccer team and stuff like that. And so it was a lot of time to just kind of figure out what I liked. And, the being alone and all that, as a kid, it sucks a bit. But I'd say that the impact that the trip had on me coming back was I really evaluated every bit of my life. I took a look at everything in my room. I took a look at what I spend, what I asked for Christmas. I took a look at everything, and I thought, what do I need? What don't I need? What can I give to people who need it more? Mm-hmm. And it gave me this new perspective on my life, where I tried to, every couple of months, just go through everything I own and ask myself, do I really need this? What value does this give to my life? And if it doesn't give value to my life, Could it give value to someone else's? Could I sell this and donate the money somewhere? What can I do with this item that doesn't benefit me to benefit someone else?
Mm-hmm. This is the kind of cleaning out process, and cleaning out the closet can be an incredibly therapeutic experience. It was something I helped a coaching client with once. She had something like 60 pairs of shoes. And we were talking about this, and she said, and earlier in the conversation, she had said, I want to help, I want to give. And so when she said she had 60 and she felt all this chaos and clutter, I said, what about giving a lot of them away? And she said, what about the occasions where I might need it maybe in the future for that pair I bought 4 years ago and have never used? And I said, honestly, do you think you'll use that one, or you'd end up buying a new one? She goes, yeah, probably a new one. I was like, do you think there'd be people out there that could benefit from those shoes? She goes, absolutely. And the next day she gave away like half or 2/3 of her shoes. And she felt so happy because she was like, I realized that these were just sitting in my closet, holding up mental space for me, physical space for me, and it could be something that was benefiting someone else. So for anyone listening, that process of just going through and purging and getting rid of the excess, it allows you to, you have less stuff to worry about, less stuff on your mind, but you also create this really great space where the only things that you have around you are things that bring you up in some way, that you like, that bring up a good memory, and it is incredibly therapeutic, I believe. So when you went on to high school, what was your experience reassimilating essentially to the educational system, the standard educational system, or coming in for that first time? Did you find that coming from homeschool, it was very difficult, or was it something you found to be inviting?
Well, luckily, my parents found a really nice liberal arts high school for me that was very open and accepting. I had a learning disability going in. They knew how to work with that. So I think I had a very unique high school experience. That being said, it was still high school.
Yep.
There were still bullies. There was still, like I told you, I refer to myself as king of the outcasts. Mm-hmm. I have always been in the nerd circle. Honestly, I kind of pride myself on never being one of the popular kids. I've always hated that image. I've always hated that title. I found that the people who are social outcasts are typically the ones who care the most about each other, because they've gone, the most bonding experience I had was comforting someone who had just been bullied by my bully, like having that relationship and having that, like, I know how it feels. But the comparison from being who I was from the trip going into high school was a bit of a shell shock. I had seen so much of the world, I didn't know how my own functioned.
Wow. Yeah,
I was going into high school, and the only concept of high school I had was from TV and movies. And so going into high school, I immediately was like, okay, I gotta be the tough guy. I gotta be the nerd. I gotta pick one of these roles and stick to it. And I'll tell you what, if you try and do something like that in high school, people can smell it from a mile away. And
yep.
They can smell you being fake from across the fucking field.
Mm-hmm.
And, it took me 2 years to find that out. Unfortunately, it took me 2 years, and it took me 1 year to recover. Senior year was easily the I say best in quotes, best year of high school. But I would not trade those 2 years for anything, because it taught me how to experience pain. It taught me how to experience other people being, I don't want to say fake towards you, but other people lashing out because of their pain. I was able to see why people were going after me, because they saw something in me that they saw in themselves. And I don't know if that was the trip I had taken that had just kind of like opened my eyes to human nature and stuff like that. But it really allowed me to see pain in people, see suffering that they're going through, and try and relate to it and comfort them through it. And that's honestly why I do what I do today.
Mm-hmm. And for me, the whole concept, because like we talked about, I dealt with bullies growing up. I dealt with situations where I wished I'd handled things differently. There were times where I was like, oh, I know they're just hurting and this isn't, they're lashing out, but it
It
still
doesn't matter
hurt.
if they're hurting it. They're still lashing out and it hurts you. And I learned that the hard way.
Right.
But the best thing to do for myself, I can't speak for anyone else out there, but yeah, you can say, oh, they're hurting, they're going through stuff, but it's still going to hurt. It's still going to hurt. And at the end of the day, the best thing to do for me was just do a self-analysis, check in with myself, make sure I still love myself. And if I find something that I don't like about myself, start thinking about it. Why? What's doing that? How can I change it? What maybe there's a habit in my life that isn't appealing to me, and maybe I need to change that.
Mm-hmm. It's so fascinating how every time there's something that bothers us or there's some pain that comes up in life, that it always comes back to us. There can be this feeling or this idea that it's about someone else, that we can play the victim, that we can try to push blame on someone else, whether it be our parents or a bully or this or that. But listeners, I really want you to pay attention to what Will said there, because it always comes back to you. And there are times where, let's say, all right, someone really treats you horribly, does something that anyone would say that was awful. When I've looked back on times I was bullied or mistreated or etc., I always come back to a point of, I wasn't mad at them. I was mad at myself for not standing up for myself. And standing up doesn't have to be a Jason Bourne fight scene. It means just not letting that happen, about saying something differently, showing up differently, because that's where the real strength comes in, knowing that you can handle these situations and knowing that you can be stronger than the circumstances around you.
And I'll tell you what, building who you are, becoming who you are, pain is mandatory. Pain is required in your life to become a strong person. Suffering is not.
Ooh, I like that a lot, because something that I do deliberately is go seek out what many people would define as painful experiences, whether even small things like taking a nice cold shower every morning, doing insane workouts, and going into these painful, tough things, because I know I need to do that in order to inspire others to do it. And I've seen how much freedom and joy and excitement and how much possibility exists on the other side of it. So that is huge, that pain is mandatory, suffering is not. Suffering is a conscious choice that we make. A lot of people say, well, no, it just happens. And I'll challenge you to recognize that that is an unconscious behavior that you have consciously reinforced, which may sound a little strange, but our unconscious is just taking in all the different data and information we're giving it and then looking for proof in our reality. So when you keep telling yourself that I'm suffering, I'm horrible, this thing was awful, your subconscious is going to look for proof for that. And then it's just going to take you down this like toilet bowl of suffering and just swirling you down and down. Whereas you can change the image, change the picture, look for the lesson in it, and then use that to grow. Doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. Like Will said, there's going to be pain. Doesn't mean it's always going to be fun. But when you can look for the lesson in anything, that's where even your worst times will come to have purpose.
And I can, do you mind if I use this to lead into a story?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Okay. So I'm currently up in Chicago in college, as you know. But I actually spent 2 years back in Boston in college for mechanical engineering. And long story short, that was a really bad call on my behalf. Boston was not a great place for me. Not to mention my major was mentally and physically killing me. But at the end of the day, it was taking a toll. And by the end of my first year, I remember I'm standing on the side of the street waiting for my mom and my sister to leave a shop, and I'm with my dad. And I'm standing there and we're having this like moment of silence. He's on his phone or something. And I turn to him and I go, I don't want to go back to school. Not as in like, oh, I don't want to go back to school. School sucks. As in like, that place is bad for me. I get a really bad feeling when I'm there. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me and he said, listen, if you don't want to go back, if you tell me right now, I 100% do not want to go back, you don't have to go back. But if you want to try and stick it out, if you want to give it one more year, maybe freshman year was just bad, I encourage you to do that. And I did. And I'll tell you what, my dad wasn't wrong. But at the end of my second year, I had hit a suicidal point on my depression. And the tipping point was I was in, if anyone listening has taken differential equations, you'll know my pain just from listening. But I was in a review session for the test the next day. And I knew I had to be there because if I wasn't there and I failed the test, the teacher was going to be pissed at me because he's like, oh, you didn't even go to the review session, blah, blah, blah. So I knew I had to go. Leaving for this review session, I already knew I was in a bad mood. Not like mad. I was upset for no reason. And I didn't know why, because I hadn't realized I was depressed up till that point. I just thought, I get upset sometimes. Oh, sometimes my mind just, drifts to some fucked up stuff, but that's not that's not me. And I'm sitting in this class, and about 10 minutes in, I have a hoodie on because it's Boston. It's cold as fuck. And I pop my hood up and I put my head down on my desk with my arms around, with my arms on the desk and my head in them, pretending to be asleep. And that's because I preferred my teacher and my peers to think I was sleeping in class than for them to see the tears I was choking back, because I was going through all the different ways I could kill myself when I got back to my dorm.
Wow.
And walking through all of them, thinking about how I didn't want to do certain ways because that would upset my parents or I would scar my roommate, stuff like that. And it was at that moment I realized, okay, something's up here, something's wrong. I probably need some help. And it took a lot of effort to call my mom that night. And for anyone who's listening who either suffers from depression in private or thinks they may be depressed, but doesn't know and doesn't want to reach out just in case maybe they're not, maybe they're overreacting, because that's where I was. I thought, oh, I get sad sometimes, but I'm not depressed. Other people have it worse. If I reach out, people are going to just shoot me down and say, oh, that's whatever. Everyone suffers through that. And pressing that dial button on my phone that night was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I encourage anyone, if you so much as think, maybe I need to talk to someone about this, do it, just in case.
Asking for help. Did you have something else there?
I was going to wrap up the story by saying,
yes.
My father wasn't wrong in telling me to go back, because if I hadn't gone back, I wouldn't have known how to face my fears. I wouldn't have known how to face my depression. I wouldn't have gone through the hard times that I can use now to relate to other people's hard times. If you run from pain, if you run from an inevitable pain, there will always be that thorn in your foot. There will always be that small nagging in the back of your head. It's always going to be there. But now that I faced it, now that I took it head on and I gave it my full effort, I can finally tackle it with full confidence. And yes, some days are real struggles. Some nights are real scary, but I now have a support system that can help me through that because I faced it head on. And then I had the courage and I had the strength to reach out and get help.
That's the most critical piece, because in anything in life, and listeners, I really, really want you to pay attention, because I know some people out there are going through some heavy shit right now, some things that they don't really know how to process. Because Will and I were talking about this, that I experienced similar feelings when I lost my mom. I never reached a point where I was considering ways to kill myself, but I had times where I said, why does it matter? And why am I here? And who gives a shit? Because I was so down and so low and so scared and hurting so much, I didn't even know where to begin. And a part of my brain said, it'd be great to not hurt like this. And there was almost that implicit voice behind it that was like, oh, well, you know what that sounds like. And it's like, no, shut the fuck up, other voice. No, it's not that. It's, I'm just saying, but there's this fear. And it was only through asking for help, then working with coaching, working with therapy, that I was able to pull myself out of that really dark place. And just like Will said, though, I have the ups and downs just like everybody else. today, admittedly, was kind of a rough day until me and Will started talking. I told him, I was like, dude, I was super excited for this because I love Will's energy, the way he shows up, and I'm learning so much more of his story. But when it comes to depression, when it comes to this feeling of isolation, I believe that's one of the worst feelings for human beings. And we have this idea that other people can't get it, that our situation is too unique, that no one's ever felt like this before. And I want you to know you're not alone. And Will and I have been there at times in our own ways. And just taking that step to reach out and get help will be the best decision you can make. And we all need help at times, no matter who it is, no matter what idol or hero or superstar you look up to, they've needed help too. And what Will said, that is especially critical, he's built a support network, the right type of people that give the right type of advice and can be there for him in the moments, and he can be there for them in the moments that they need each other. So Will, you asked for help. You took that big step. You made that incredible leap where most people think just pushing the button on the phone to make a call is something so small, but was such a monumental thing in that moment.
For sure.
Can you give some practical steps forward for if there's someone going through it right now that's listening? What were some of the steps you took after making that call to help you face the demons? Because that journey can seem so insurmountable and so terrifying. It's like facing the Balrog in Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And what were some of the steps that you took and you would recommend for the listeners if they're in that deep, dark, painful place?
Well, I would start by saying, before I even get into the solution, sometimes getting help can seem like such a huge task. It can seem like there's so much involved and there's so much you have to do. And the future ahead is so complex, and it all overwhelms you. And my solution when that started happening to me is I would shut off. I would withdraw. I'd go play video games. I wouldn't talk to people. I wouldn't eat. And I would just check out. And honestly, that's easy. That's the easy solution. That's an easy way to avoid it. And you're not going to get anywhere, and you're just going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing is the next 5 minutes, is what you can do with your life in the next 5 minutes to help yourself. What I did in the moment, in my really dark moment in that class, coming out of that class, dialing the phone to talk to my mom, it was focusing on the next 5 minutes. Don't think about, oh, how am I going to find a therapist? How am I going to pay for them? How am I going to get there? Like, what are my friends going to think? What are my parents going to think? Don't think about that. Just think about the next 5 minutes. What can you do for yourself? Because if you keep going 5 minutes after 5 minutes, then it's going to turn into 5 hours, and then 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years. And next thing you know, you're going to be out of it.
Love it, man. It's so powerful, and it seems so simple. And what I found that many of the solutions that people are looking for in their life, how do I write a book? How do I take on this big challenge? How do I overcome depression? It all boils down to simple things, not easy, simple. And like you said, if someone just says, what can I do in 5 minutes? And here's the other beautiful, the other side of that is if you say, listen, 5 minutes, that's it. All you got to do is do 5 minutes to turn this around, to make this better. That way, once you've done your 5 minutes, you've accomplished something. And even if nothing has changed, if you took one step, you tried to call somebody, it didn't work, you already feel better because you took one more step towards taking control of the situation and controlling what you can. We know the only thing we can control is ourselves. So you took that moment to control yourself and the voices in your head. So, and Will, I really appreciate how you share this message, because I know you sharing helps so many people, and your voice reaching out to me and to the listeners, that people go, listen, I'm not alone and there's other people like me. And this transitions beautifully into what you're doing now, because being the king of the outcasts, you work to help all of those people who feel like that they're alone, that they don't belong, to find a place to belong. So can you tell the listeners about what you're doing now and how you operate as the king of the outcasts?
So I currently live stream on similar to Facebook live streaming on a website called twitch.tv, which is a website that was originally created for people to play video games and people to watch them live and interact with them through a chat and stuff like that. It's branched out to art and music, but I focus on gaming. And what I do is I've had 2 major depressive episodes in my life, to the point where I'm not getting out of bed. No one's seen me for a week. I'm barely eating. And I got to the point where I couldn't, it was hard to get out of bed. I got out of bed and my head swam and I kind of fell back into bed. And the only thing that got me through those times were YouTubers and Twitch streamers that played video games. It was, and some comedians, but it was someone forcing me to smile and laugh when I didn't want to. When there was a part of me that said, how dare you laugh right now? How dare you smile? How dare you have a good time? And it was those people that forced me to smile, forced me to maybe not even smile on the outside, but just have that little tingle in your heart when something really rings true. And when I finally got a hold of myself, when I finally, took shit by the reins and I was like, all right, we're going to do something with this. I decided I wanted to be that for someone else. I wanted to be that person that no matter what you're going through, no matter how hard life is right now, you can come to my stream, you can relax for a couple hours, forget about life, forget about what's going on, and just deflate for a bit. Enjoy some idiot playing video games and screaming about how stupid it is and why would they do it like this? And just something that's completely irrelevant to your life, because it's so nice to. Now, I don't want to confuse this with escapism, because escapism is not a healthy habit, because escapism is what you do to force yourself to forget about something. Escapism is taking drugs, is drinking so that you can't think. What this is it's a positive distraction. It's taking someone and saying, I know you're going through a hard time. I know you are. And listen, we've all been there. We understand. And we're not about that right now. Right now, it's about you. Right now, it's about being happy. Right now, it's about taking a second and just enjoying life, bringing a little happiness into your life. And so I created my stream and I designed my community and encourage my community to be as supportive as they are. I mean, even just today, I'm not going to call out any names because I don't want to do that. But I had one of my viewers privately message me and talk about how someone that was close to them in high school just passed away in a car accident. And we talked for a bit about that. And, I was helping them through that, because even though I've never met this person, I care about them. I care about every single one of my viewers. And so the stream itself on a base concept is about that, is about supporting people going through a hard time, supporting people who are at a hard point in their life. Maybe you're bullied in high school. Maybe you just went through a divorce. We've had all of that in the channel. And then on top of that, I decided, okay, we're already helping people with this. There is a revenue stream from Twitch. There is some money that I can make. I don't need money right now. I'm at a good point in my life. I don't need that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage my viewers to donate to charity. I'm going to see how much money I can raise through this channel for charity. So not only are we helping each other, we're helping other people. Because like you said, anyone who says that money can't bring you happiness hasn't given enough away yet. Donating money, I do it all the time. Donating money makes you feel so good. And when I look at that number, when I see that we've raised over $1,600 for charity in under a year, it makes me feel so good. My community is so proud of that. And it's that positive nature. It's that positive atmosphere. It's that loving and caring and sharing attitude that I try and bring to the internet, and I try and bring to my community. I try and create I don't like the word safe space, but I try and create a positive environment that discourages negativity.
And here's what's exceptional about that. I mean, there's a number of things, but one of the things that pops to my mind first is the idea that you've taken a bunch of people who feel as though they're outcasts, which we all feel in some way. Everyone has this feeling of not feeling like they're enough, feeling like they're good enough, feeling like they'd be accepted, feeling totally.
That's my big ones. It's not feeling like I'm enough.
Yep. Oh yeah. That's all of us.
I look at that number, 1,600. Man, why couldn't it have been 2,000? Why couldn't I have gotten 5 extra viewers today? Why couldn't I have streamed for a little bit longer? Why am I not good enough? Why couldn't I have been funnier? And honestly, at the end of the day, if you live your life off the what ifs, you will not leave your door in the morning because you're afraid, what if I get hit by a car? Life is about risks. Life is about taking risks where you don't know the outcome. You don't know what your odds are, but you know that the result is good enough.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you've built a community that is perpetuating this goal that you've set, because that's the thing. People, what I found is when there's something heavy and something serious going on, people want to help, but most people have no idea even how to begin. When I was dealing with everything with my mom, and I was going through a lot of similar emotions to what you were just describing in terms of just feeling lost, disconnected, scared, because I did the same thing. I shut off emotionally when my mom was sick, and after she died, I didn't know where to begin. I just said, I need to do whatever I need to in this moment to feel good. And when you and I talked about this, it made me realize, I don't know if there's a term for it, but even a positive break or a positive numbing or something, because normally numbing has a negative connotation. But there were times I needed that, because at that point I wasn't ready to face all the demons. I was ready to face small ones, like, why haven't you put on pants today? But I wasn't ready to face, going back to the day that the doctor told us that there's nothing more we can do and it would be cruel to continue to try and treat her. Going back to the day when we got the call, like that I wasn't ready for. So for all the listeners, I really want you to know that when it comes to the really, really heavy things in your life, you don't have to tackle them all at once. And that goes with all of the problems or challenges in your life. You don't have to tackle them all at once. Think about what Will said earlier. What can you do in the next 5 minutes? What can you do to set yourself up to succeed, to show yourself some love, to get yourself to laugh when nothing seems to make you want to laugh? And that might be just calling that friend you haven't called who always knows how to make you laugh. It might be listening to Louis C.K. say something horrific and ridiculous, but for some reason you find yourself laughing. When you can take the time to do that work and move through it at your own pace, and also give yourself days off, give yourself time to rest. Then when it comes to what's
pain,
that?
Because I'll tell you what, pain is exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Pain will take everything out of you. So if you don't give yourself time to recharge, if you don't find that thing that takes away the pain for just a little bit, and like I said, don't escape, don't use escapism. Find something that's a healthy way, something that just brings you a little joy in your life. If you can give yourself a break from that pain, even for 5 minutes, it will help you. It will give you so much energy to face that pain again.
And when you face the pain and see the benefit on the other side, you know that there's something better through the pain, that you don't just have to live with the pain and run away from it. I always use the analogy of when you were a little kid and you looked in the corner of the room and you were convinced there was a monster. And when you finally had the courage to turn on your flashlight and you saw it was just a sweatshirt draped over the chair, you realized there was nothing to fear and you were able to let go. So take those breaks, give yourself time, allow yourself to feel what you need to feel. And actually, Will, something we talked about is something that you do with your streamers. On days where you need to recharge, can you tell the listeners a bit about what you do with your community on Twitch on the days where you really need a break?
I'm honest with them. I tell them, guys, I'm having a bad day. I need a day for myself. I can't stream today. I feel like I can't bring the positivity and the energy that you guys want and need. So I'm going to take a day for myself. I hope you understand. And they always do. They are always insanely supportive. I recently went through a really tough breakup and I ended up not streaming for about 2 weeks. Back then I was streaming 5 days a week. So to take 2 weeks off was a huge break. And every single day that I came into we communicate through a app called Discord, which is fantastic. But every day I'd go into our Discord channel and I'd say to them, guys, I'm sorry, I can't stream today. And every single day there was this overwhelming positivity and support that came back at me. Mm. And it's so scary to tell people that you're going through pain and that you can't do something because you're hurting, because you're afraid you're going to get that, like, oh, suck it up. Like, who cares? And because that's what you're telling yourself. You're telling yourself, why can't I just suck it up? But the honest truth is everyone understands. Everyone gets it. And if you tell them, I'm having a really bad day, I'm feeling some pain right now, and I just need some time to recharge and focus on myself, no one's going to hate you for that. And if they do, they're an asshole, and cut them out of your life.
100%. It's something where we are so worried about losing people for being who we really are. But if we lose people for that authenticity, they're the wrong people. You don't want those types of people. They'll be as much of a drain as the pain in your life at times. And so it's another tough lesson to learn, that people will enter and leave our lives, and sometimes we have to actively cut them out. But when you're able to express authentically, what I've found 99.9% of the time is that people are so thankful because they're feeling a lot of the same things you are, and they just needed somebody else to take off the mask for enough time for them to be able to take off theirs. And it's refreshing, man. It is so liberating when you're able to drop the mask and just say, hey, man, yeah, hey, how's your day? Shitty. Me too. Let's talk about it. And then all of a sudden, you don't feel alone. That's how you can start to create some connection with people where you feel totally isolated. Let down the mask, let out the vulnerability, be willing to be you, and do what Will does and really focus on self-care. Listen to your body. And right now, I'm 100% giving myself the advice I need because I've been very much neglecting my sleep this week. So it's something where we've all got to remind ourselves. And that's part of why I love doing this podcast, because I get to talk to great people like Will who remind me of lessons that I need to learn and help me learn tons of new things. So, Will, our hour is rapidly coming to a close.
Yeah, I've been noticing.
And it's crazy how quickly time goes. So I want to make sure we make time for the last two questions, because I'm really curious to hear your perspective and your input on this. So two questions we close out every interview with on Overcoming Graduation. And then I'm going to give you an opportunity to share where people can connect with you, learn more about you right before we wrap up. So the first question, and being that we're both in the millennial generation and that word gets thrown around with all kinds of generally negative connotations and all kinds of chaos. People are terrified of the working world. They think there's no way to get a job, or I couldn't be an entrepreneur. There's all this fear and all this chaos around being a young adult in this world. And there's also a massive level of disconnection, even though we have more ability to connect than ever before. Yep. So the question is, what is the unique value that you believe millennials bring to the world today?
I think that's a complicated answer. Mm-hmm. It's, like you said, we are a very connected generation. And because of that, and because of having Google at our fingertips and being able to look up information whenever we want, instead of having to wonder, maybe come up with the ideas, maybe spread misinformation because we want to sound smarter, we can just look it up. I've been going on a kick for about 1.5 years for blacksmithing. I could blacksmith right now. I know enough about it. I've never touched one, but I feel like I could do it proficiently. We live in a generation where we are the human multi-tools. There is no, this generation's, the millennials are going to do this really well because there are so many of us going in different directions. Mm-hmm. We are the multi-tool generation. We are the generation that's going to go and kind of touch on everything. I consider myself a jack of all trades. I'm not great at computers, but I can work on them pretty well. I'm not great at other things, but I can do it pretty well. And not to say that, every millennial is going to be like that. I know some fantastic people who are insane at one thing, but that's because they were able to access that information super early. My roommate back in Boston, Eddie, one of the best programmers I've ever met, got 3 job requests from Google in his first year of college.
Wow.
Turn them all down, by the way, to keep going through college. But that's because he's been coding since he was 10. Because he had Google, because he had websites like Code Academy, because he had access to tools that allowed him to just go. He knew he was interested in it, so he went, and he had the ability to pursue it. And I think that's why we're such a strong generation, because at an early age, we were allowed to pursue our dreams freely.
I love that. And I love when I get an answer I've never gotten before on the show, and that is one of them. And one of the powerful lessons there for all the listeners is this, is that the information is there, guys. The excuses from the past of, I can't get to the information, I don't know where to begin, it's all at our fingertips. So when your curiosity gets sparked, it's like Elizabeth Gilbert says, don't follow your passion, follow your curiosity. Go seek out information, seek out lessons, seek out something new that excites you just for the fuck of it, like for no reason whatsoever. If you want to go learn about tadpoles, for the love of God, do it. It's like, get your mind excited again, because we're so used to just getting whatever answer we want at our fingertips, like Will said, that when we take time to imagine and be curious and then go seek out, that's what life is all about. So love that answer, man. And we've got one more for you. Now, this one is, and I'm going to modify slightly for you because of your story. And normally the question would be, if you could go back and talk to your younger self at graduation, what would you say to your younger self? But because of the tough, extremely tough times that you've gone through dealing with depression and suicidal thoughts, if you could go back now, knowing everything you know now, and talk to younger Will at the darkest, deepest, worst moment of that depression, what would you say to your younger self?
I'm going to be completely honest with you, and this is going to sound like a bit of a brutal answer. I'd probably say nothing. I probably wouldn't even talk to myself, because if I helped myself through that time, if I gave myself a crutch, if I gave myself the, some knowledge that I have now or something like that, I would not be the person I am today. And I've gone through a lot of pain in my life, stuff that I haven't talked about here, that I haven't told a lot of people. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, because I wouldn't be me without it. I wouldn't be able to help people and sympathize through other pain, because I wouldn't have experienced it. And I wouldn't be able to help people the way I do today. I wouldn't have helped myself back then, because I know that I needed to go through that.
Dude, you are an inspiration. This stuff is beautiful. And how old are you now? Because you're in school currently. How old are you right now?
I'm 21.
Dude, fucking phenomenal. Honestly, it's the fact that you're out there, and that we have guys like you at 21 years old who are learning and working to develop themselves in this way. This is it. It boosts me up, because it's the mission that I'm on, is to help and serve younger adults and help them see the possibility. And to know guys like you are out there, and so many of the other people I've interviewed on the podcast, and the people we met at Sean's event, it boosts me up when I'm feeling alone, when I'm feeling scared. So I really appreciate you, man. This is fantastic stuff that you're doing. So before we wrap up, I definitely want to make sure we give you an opportunity to help listeners connect with you more. So as I'm sure there's going to be listeners that want to reach out, watch your Twitch channel. So where can the listeners come to connect with you?
So my Twitch channel is twitch.tv. That's TWI. Oh, wait, hold on. Twitch, the way you'd think it'd be spelled, .tv/Jack Strider, JACKSTRIDER.
Mm-hmm.
And and then my Twitter is Jack Strider with 2 underscores, and not one. I hate the 2 underscore thing, because every business card and every email I send, it looks like 1, because they just mold together, but it's 2 underscores. And then on Facebook, it's just Jack Strider. It's a little chibi version of me with green hair. It's not hard to miss.
And before I let you go, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about relating to your Twitch channel that I loved. You said, and it relates to physical fitness. So the last thing I'd love for you to share is how you incorporate fitness to your Twitch channel.
So I know that one big thing for me is I'm a skinny dude. I don't work out a ton, and that's my fault. And so I use the Twitch channel to encourage myself and my viewers to stay fit. For every follow that I get, which is similar to a subscription on YouTube. Subscriptions on Twitch are paid monthly. You pay $5 a month. But for every follow I get, I will do 10 reps of one of 4 workouts. So that's squats, lunges, push-ups, or crunches. That's it. And I'll do 10 reps. They get to pick which one. And then for donations, I will match the donation dollar for dollar. I had one stream where I did 632 push-ups because people just kept donating money because they thought it was funny. And it was not funny. For me, it was great for them.
What was the time frame? Because this was the craziest part. I remember you saying
it took me about like an hour and a half, but I didn't, I just kept going. At one point my arms gave out, so I had to do crunches for a bit, but yeah.
632 push-ups in an hour, dude. That's phenomenal. So,
well, I give or it'd probably give more, but I like to say an hour. It makes me sound way cooler than I am.
In 10 minutes? I can't. Wow, you did it in 1 second? That's phenomenal.
God, 100 per second. It's
yeah. I just like to overachieve. I really work to strive past my
pecs are amazing.
So, dude, thank you so much. I needed this today.
Can I give a PS to your viewers?
What was that?
Can I give a PS to your listeners?
100%.
All right. I want to give them a task. So try this for a week. If you don't like it, forget about it. I'm just some guy on the internet. You don't have to listen to me. If you like it, incorporate it into your life. For the next week, do not have a single 0 day. Do not have a single day where you don't do anything, where you don't do anything to improve yourself, to improve your life. Even if that's reading one page of that book you want to read, even if that's, watching one episode of that new show you want to watch, do something to improve your life. Do something to better yourself. Just maybe that's one push-up. But as long as you can do something that day outside of your normal routine that improves your life, you're making progress. So I encourage you, for just a week, don't have a 0 day. And if you like it, keep doing it.
Love that. Also, another one I haven't heard. So listeners, you heard it. Don't have a 0 day. Try it on for a week. What's amazing about setting small time frames and starting with these small goals and saying, what can I do for the next 5 minutes? Well, in those next 5 minutes, you can decide how you're not going to have a 0 5 minutes. And that turns into a day, which turns into a week. And then all of a sudden you're a month in and everything has changed. So Will, thank you so much for today. For all the listeners, everything that Will has talked about, the links he's mentioned will be in the show notes. So Will, I'm going to ask you to hang on for one more second. Listeners, that is going to be all for you today. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll be talking to you again real soon.
Bye, guys.
Told you all, Will is a truly incredible and truly special person. Many of the things that I heard in this interview that Will shared with us were things I've never heard on any interview I've done in the past on Overcoming Graduation, and some of the concepts were things I had never heard, period. So Will was educating, sharing, opening our hearts, making us laugh, and bringing us on incredible adventures all over the world. Some of my favorites were the 5-second focus of don't focus on the next year, the next month, or even the next day. What can you do in the next 5 seconds to turn things around? What can you do in the next 5 seconds to love on yourself? What can you do in the next 5 seconds to help someone? Because oftentimes when we get too internally focused, it's where a lot of our pain and suffering comes from. Sometimes it's just about shifting our focus from internal to who can we help and serve externally. Also, the idea of 0 days, where don't ever let a day goes by where nothing gets accomplished. And as Will said, sometimes it's something so small. It's watching an episode of that new show you've really wanted to check out. Maybe it's taking a 5-minute walk, just getting outside and breathing the fresh air. One of the worst feelings is going through a day and feeling like nothing was accomplished or that day served no purpose in your life. Now, trust me, it did. Because when you're willing to look back and find the lessons in those days, or maybe that's the wake-up call you need to say, man, it feels like there's a lot of monotony. I need to create something new. I need to bring something different in my life. Those days serve a purpose. Those days are there for a reason if we're willing to find it. But capturing it as a 0 day and saying, listen, man, I don't want a 0 day. I'm going to read 1 page in the book. I'm going to do 10 push-ups. That made that day have purpose. That meant you overcame something. Even if you felt depressed, lost, or scared, alone, you did something that day to love on yourself or love on the world. When he also talked about the positive distraction versus escapism, this is incredibly important, especially for people who are going through tough times. Because as I shared in the interview, there were many times where I didn't feel like I could do anything to make myself feel better, so I would try anything. It sounds a little contradictory, but what I mean is that Whatever felt like it was going to make me feel better in that moment is what I would go for. Whatever felt like it would lift me up a little bit, I would go for without going to excess. So maybe it was some fatty, greasy food. Maybe it was a donut. Maybe it was I'm going to come home and have 2 beers, but no more because I didn't want to lose control. Sometimes I needed that. Sometimes it was my friends taking me out and, hey, let's take our mind off things for a while. I'm doing something positive. I am distracting from the issue. I'm not ignoring it and I'm not avoiding it. It's just right at that moment is not the time to deal with it. Escapism being the opposite, where you're trying to avoid it, never have to deal with it, and run from it. And God knows, and we all know that sooner or later when we try to use escapism as our only means of dealing with difficult issues, it will catch up with us. Will and I and many other people out there want to help you to make sure that you don't ever feel lost and don't ever get captured or trapped, feel like you're trapped in escapism. So if you need help, reach out. Will's contact and Will's channels are in the show notes. So they're there so that you can go and feel connected. If you feel like an outcast, Will is the guy that's bringing everyone together as the king of outcasts. If you feel lost or scared or alone, reach out to me. I'm here, Brian at overcominggraduation.com. I don't say this as bullshit. I don't say this as, oh, it's a nice thing to say at the end of podcasts. Like, I'm here for all of you. You put the time into listening to these episodes, and I'm here to help. I'm here to help share the things that have helped save my life and change my life for the better, and I want to share them with you. So that is all for today, guys. On the note of sharing powerful messages and messages that help and impact, my friend Jonathan Fisher and I are putting on our first ever co-hosted live event called Beyond Belief, June 30th, 2018 in Santa Monica, California. At this event, we're going to be sharing how to live a life that is beyond belief in health, wealth, and relationships. So if you're ready to live a life that is beyond belief from where you currently are now in just one day, click the link in the show notes to be taken to the ticket purchasing page where you can fill out your information, pick up your ticket, and make sure you book one of the 48 seats in the theater that we have. It is a fairly small theater. It's intimate. We picked it that way because we want to feel close. We want to feel connected, and we want to make sure you have the seats. So pick up your tickets today if you are ready for a full day of transformation, fun, and laughter. Additionally, if this show was of value to you, I really would encourage you, and I would be honored if you would share this out with your friends and following. And I know you hear this a lot on podcasts, and I know I've shared much less than I've listened to. But when there is something of value that you put out to the world, it has the opportunity to touch more people's lives. So it means so much to me to see that and to know that what I'm putting out there has touched you so much that you feel the desire to share it out with the people in your world. So if this was of value, please share. Please comment and rate on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you're listening. And if you need any help with how to do that, check out the show notes. I've got it all broken down for you. So thank you all for listening today. I love you guys. I truly do. And I look forward to connecting with you again very soon.